Okay, listen, I know it is vacation time. I know it is holiday time, time to go to the beach. And obviously, you still want to look fly. So I want to show you guys in today's video how to make sure that your makeup lasts all day. It is sweat proof, it is transfer proof, it is sun proof, it is rubber proof. In this video. So if you're interested in that, then definitely do keep on watching. Okay, I am a makeup artist, so even though I have normal skin, I have interacted with a lot of skin types that are oily, acne prone, combination oily skin. So I want to share a few other tips that I have found along the way that really helps to make your makeup last all day. So obviously I've gone ahead and done my eyes. The first thing that we're going to be doing in terms of skin is going in with our moisturizer. Guys, I can never insist this enough. Whether you have dry skin, sensitive skin, oily skin, acne prone skin, it is important to moisturize your skin, because if you don't moisturize your skin, then your skin goes into overproduction of that oil, which you really don't need. So moisturize. I don't want to go too much into the specifics of the formulation of the moisturizer, but personally I do tend to go towards the more water-based moisturizers that are oil-free as opposed to the silicone ones, just because I feel like they sit better on the skin and also they just look more natural, more flawless. So for today, I'm going to be going in with my Nivea cream. Guys, this one is an OG. If you know me, if you know this channel, you know we have been using this for literally years. There are a few alternatives to this, but this one, it always comes through for me. And regardless of the skin type, it doesn't have a lot of oil in it, so it really makes your makeup still look nice and moisturized, and your skin doesn't feel devoid of any moisture. So I'm going to be going in with a very thin layer of it. I do have clients who sometimes usually insist and tell me, you know, I've done my skincare, let's just go ahead and do the makeup straight after that. But I always like to wipe it off. I'm sorry, if you have that expensive skincare and you call a makeup artist, just know I will wipe it off, okay? Because most of the time the formulations of our skincare is not formulated to sit underneath makeup, so it does start breaking down all the components of your makeup, and it doesn't help the makeup last all day. So always I like to go in with just my moisturizer, especially for those hot days, and then just blend it into the skin. And don't forget about your neck and your under eyes, okay? We are not dealing with creasy under eyes in 2023, so always make sure you really go in and moisturize your under eyes just to avoid any crease. Hey baby,
did you just say you're not dealing with creasy under eyes in 2023?
That's what I say. I say what I say, okay? Okay, so we are done with moisturizer. Next up is the most crucial step. Okay, one of the most crucial steps. So shout out to my girl Makeup by M on Instagram. She put me onto this and it has been literally a game changer for me. This one is a sweat block. At first I was like, sweat blocker? I don't want my pores to be like clogged up because my sweat is not coming out. But it's a very nice, light, water-based formulation that just helps to keep all the oils at bay. And even when you sweat and you just, you know, perspire over here, it doesn't really show over the makeup. So it literally just looks like water. I like to put a little bit of it on my clean hand, like just literally a drop, and then take a clean makeup pad, and then just saturate it with it, and then just apply it all over where I would ideally sweat, which is my T-zone area. So over here, and if you notice, I'm not dragging it, I'm just patting it in because I don't want to dismantle that whole layer of moisturizer and skin prep that I have done before. Okay, so next up we are going to our primer. I know primer is usually so controversial with so many people. I said on my TikTok, like, oh my gosh, this primer helps. She was like, no, primer is a scam. I'm like, girl, relax. Okay, it works for me, so I'm gonna use it. I also like to use water-based primers, especially when I've used a water-based moisturizer underneath. But you can go in with the silica-based primers. But what I do find with that is sometimes, depending on the formulation of your foundation, it can move a little bit on your skin, as opposed to some water-based primers. So I like Rimmel, I like Flory Roberts, I also have TM Essentials and a bunch of other ones, but I'm going to use the most common one, which is Rimmel, and just use the tiniest bit and then apply it all over my face, except obviously my under eye, because we don't want it to be so dry to the point that it starts with the creasing, and then I again will push the product in. One thing I want to mention to you guys is make sure that each layer that you are applying on your skin is very, very thin. So don't overdo it when it comes to your layers. So you want very thin but very breathable layers that will still do the job, but will still allow you to feel comfortable and maintain your products all day. So I'm just patting it in, and then now we go into our foundation. Okay, so next we're going to go into our foundation. The foundation that I'm going to be using is a Nedge World foundation. It is a mattifying formula. So just basically whichever mattifying foundation that you prefer, you go in with that. And then I'm also going to be using a brush and a sponge. I always like to interchange between the two. So here is our next tip when it comes to making sure that your makeup lasts all day. So you remember when we were talking about the layers, make sure it's a thin layer. Same thing with your foundation. So I'm just gonna, I've done one pump of both of them, and then I'm using just a bit of it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to swipe as opposed to pushing in. You remember in my earlier videos when we were talking about coverage foundations, applying foundations, when it comes to the full coverage foundations, even when you swipe, it still gives you that nice coverage, and especially if you don't have problematic skin. If you do have problematic skin, what I do recommend going in with is a small brush, and then just go in with your foundation or your concealer, whatever it is, and then do your spot correction. Spot correction basically means that you're taking a little bit of extra product in a specific area where you want to, do a little bit of work on and placing that product over there, as opposed to adding 2 or 3 pumps or layers of foundation on your whole face, and yet you don't need it. So again, swiping makes sure that we are evening out the layer as opposed to having one thick layer on your skin. And then even as you are swiping, make sure that you are really doing it in a very light motion. And then obviously we're going to avoid so much product over here. So what I'm going to put over here is what is remaining on the brush, like so. And then just making sure that the rest of it, we just blend it into the skin. As you guys can see, this side I have no foundation, and this side I have foundation, but a very thin layer of foundation. The thicker your layer of foundation, the higher your chances of it creasing, and also it feeling very heavy and uncomfortable on your skin. So if you don't have any blemishes to correct, just go in with a very full coverage foundation, and then just instead of patting it in, just swipe so that you can be able to have a very thin layer of the foundation underneath. And then as usual, I always like to go in with my beauty blender. This is a tip I always give you guys. Whenever you're using a beauty blender, obviously it's already damp, but whenever you're using a beauty blender, if it's clean, obviously it should be clean, but okay, whenever you're using your beauty blender to blend, for example, an area like this, I always like to go in with just a little bit on the beauty blender. Why? The beauty blender is a sponge, so naturally it sucks product. Okay, so we don't want it to use it clean and then come here and then suck some of the foundation. So I always like to put a very thin layer on the area that I'm using for the foundation, and then just go in and then bounce as I even out that layer, and I make it look very nice, natural, and airbrush. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does make sense. So as opposed to if, for example, I wanted to reduce the amount of foundation that I've put on my skin, I would go in with a clean side, of my sponge, and then just dab, and that would automatically suck out the excess foundation that I've used. So let me go ahead and do the same thing on this other side. And remember guys, we only used one pump, and with that one pump is what we're going to use for our whole face. And again, if you have maybe acne or some discoloration or hyperpigmentation that you would like to correct, go in and spot correct. So take a smaller brush, go in with your product and target that specific area, as opposed to adding one whole other layer of your foundation or your cream products. Okay, so we are done blending in the foundation. As you guys can see, it's a very, very thin layer, but still gives me that beautiful coverage, but it still looks skin-like, which is what you always want to go for, unless cakiness is your kind of thing, which is okay. And if you notice, I still have some foundation that I haven't used, So just go in very light layers. Next, I'm going to go into our concealer. There are people who like to do, matte foundation, matte primer, matte. For me personally, especially when I get a client who is oily, not very oily, I'd like to go in with a hydrating concealer underneath the eyes. Reason being is I found that especially if you overlayer matte, you end up looking dry and very unflattering. But the upside of that is later on in the day when somebody sweats and produces those oils, it does look nice, but initially you do look dry. So depending on the effect that you want, obviously would determine the kind of concealer that you would be going for. Okay, so I want to show you guys two different types of concealers. So you can either go in with a hydrating concealer. This one is the Juvia's Place Minis. I really love these concealers. Like, they look so beautiful and they're so creamy, and they're like a really nice balance between all the mattifying products and this, because it sort of evens out so it doesn't look like super dry. Or alternatively, I can go in with my either Maybelline's one is the Maybelline Super Stay Full Coverage Under Eye Concealer. Guys, this concealer, if you've never used it, you're sleeping on it. It's what I've actually used to conceal the arch of my eyebrow, and it was beautiful. Another good alternative, which is a mattifying formulation, is this one. It's the Nedge World concealers. It's the same company that I used for my foundation. Really beautiful. Dries down matte, but it doesn't dry down as matte as this one, which is a good thing, because sometimes I found that this one, if you don't set it well, it does tend to crease sometimes. So yeah, depending on what you have, but just look for the formulations that almost balance it out, so you're not going for matte and you end up looking dry, but there is a little bit of some dewiness or hydrating product just to even it out. So the Juvia's, I'm gonna go in with my Juvia's. It's in the shade, it's in number 14. I don't know if there's a name. And then you want to make sure you apply the thinnest layer. So I'm just going to apply a little bit over there and over there. And this coverage is also really beautiful. A little bit over there, there. The usual places that we conceal. If you notice, I am going in with the thinnest layers, just because I don't want my skin to be heavy. So again, I'm going to go in with my beauty blender and then blend everything out. If you want it obviously to have more coverage, then go in and let it set down a little bit with a fan. But I'm going to blend all the other areas and then come back and do my under eye as the last one. So the next thing we're gonna do is set our under eyes. I am using my puff and some setting powder. I am using the mix between RCMA and Blossom because I really love how brightening this is, but it's a little too yellow for me, so I like to mix the two and then just use my puff underneath my eyes to even it out. Look at how gorgeous that looks. Like, wow. I'm taking some of that same powder and then setting on any areas that I have some smile lines, but with a very light layer of powder, and then the rest of it I'm just gonna take it and lightly dust my face. If you have extremely oily skin, obviously go in and bake, but for me, I feel like once I have set my face in place nicely, I usually don't need to go back in with baking. Just the prep will make sure that your makeup lasts all day. So we're gonna go on to setting the rest of our face and also to contour. Another tip when it comes to oily skin is not using cream contour, but using powder contour. Why that is because we want to make sure we are reducing heavily the amount of cream products that could eventually start breaking down, and you're going in with the powders so that it will still give us that definition, it will still give us that warmth, but it won't be really something that is easily broken down as opposed to using a cream product. So I'm going to go in with my V Beauty palette and just using my normal highlighter shade, and then my normal contour shade, and then contouring the rest of my face, my nose, and then using my face color for the rest of my face. Alrighty, so we are done with the face, and finally the last step, just to make sure that we have really set it in place and that our makeup doesn't move. We're gonna go in with our setting spray. This one is the Maybelline Lasting Fix. I don't usually feel like it does like such a heavy job in terms of mattifying, in terms of making the makeup long lasting, but it is a nice mattifying product. And I also like the fact that, especially when I spray it on my face, even when I've used matte products, it does melt the makeup in place really beautifully. So I use it for that, and then now I have another OG that really makes sure that the makeup now lasts in place. So this one is just basically to melt everything together, and then now we go in with our other one, just like to shake it up. And then because I've gone in with a matte eye, obviously I'm not going to spray it, because if you ever wonder why people usually cover their eyes when it comes to the time for spraying, it's because sometimes the water in the setting spray, if it gets on your eyeshadow, sometimes it does make it separate and look patchy. So just to avoid that, we use a setting spray. So I'm just going to cover my eyes. And I don't know if Maybelline will ever watch this video, but in case they do, I love the product, but the spray is usually so hard to keep pressing. So if maybe that could be improved, I feel like it could be an even better product. So yeah, because I usually have to come closer to my face to really get the spritz there. So we are done with that. I'm gonna dry it down just a little bit and then do my lips, and then I'll finally show you guys what the last secret weapon for this long-lasting makeup look is. Okay, so I went ahead, I did my lips. So the last secret ingredient is an all-nighter spray. This one is a really beautiful one. It smells really terrible, but it works and I love it, so we endure the smell. This one is the Ferrarucci Professional Makeup All-Nighter Makeup Fixer Spray. One of the ingredients of it is fixing glue, so it does almost smell like, I don't know if you've ever smelled shoe glue that is used to fix shoes. Yeah, it sort of smells like that. But another great alternative, which doesn't smell as as bad, is the Morphe spray and also the Urban Decay all-nighter spray. Also something that is similar to this is the Kryolan all-nighter spray. I think it's the all-nighter spray if I'm not wrong, but the Kryolan spray also does a really great job when it comes to fixing your face. So after I finished everything, I'm just going to spray a really small amount of this, let it dry down, and we will be finished. Okay guys, so that is the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, and I will see you guys on our next video.